My neighbor is one of those annoying, wannabe YouTube personalities. Over the years, I've seen him cough up cinnamon, lay flat on the hood of his car as it slowly creeps down the driveway, and douse himself in lukewarm water, all the while screaming, "Epic win! Epic fail!" or, fuck, epic maintenance of the status quo for all I know. As you can imagine, it can get pretty tiring watching him go about his shenanigans in the pursuit of viral fame. So when he knocked on my door the other day to tell me he was going away for a few weeks and asked that I get his mail for him, honestly, it was a relief. I can't explain the peace of mind I had knowing I didn't have to brace myself for any of his stupidity for a while. I was always afraid one of his stunts would wind up bleeding over into my life. Things were pretty normal for the first couple of days. He received a few bills, a bit of spam, and what I can only assume was a birthday card. Then, one evening, I got home to find a cardboard box waiting on the front of his porch. Written in big red letters were the words, "Return to sender." I'm no small fry, but I admit I had trouble lifting the box on my own. It was really freaking heavy. Lugging it across the road to my house was even harder, and I quickly realized there was no way I was going to be able to drag it up the front of my stairs and through the front door. I decided I'd leave the package in my garage. It wasn't like I kept my car in there anyway. The garage door was a piece of shit that refused to open without a good thug and a whack. It was less trouble just leaving the car in the driveway than it was to fight with the garage door every morning and every night. In hindsight, I probably should have just set the package down while I struggled to open the tricky door, but you know how it is when you've got a good grip on something. There's really no point in setting it down if you don't have to. It was just as I kicked the door for the third time that I lost my grip on the package. It fell to the ground and I heard a light crack from inside. Shit, I cursed. I hoped I hadn't broken anything important, but figured I just wouldn't tell my neighbor about it and let him assume the break happened somewhere en route. Now hands-free, I finally managed to get the garage door unstuck, and boy did it screech in protest as I rolled it up and over me. I dragged the box the rest of the way, setting it in the corner for whenever my neighbor would come back to claim it. And then, after a while, I just sort of forgot about it. Until a few days passed, that is. I'm not exactly sure how long it took for the smell to waft in from the crack under the garage door that led into my house, but it came in very slow progression. It was a sickly, sweet odor, similar to a skunk, and for the first few days after I smelled it, I genuinely assumed that's exactly what it was. Roadkill that had left its mark on my house. It was only when I realized the scent was growing more and more intense instead of fading away that I went looking for a source. That's when I opened the garage door, and that's when the odor knocked me back as I held my nose. The culprit wasn't exactly hard to identify. The only change in my garage was the box in the corner. I remember thinking it must have been one of those meat of the month subscription boxes. The meat must have gone rancid from being left out of the fridge for so long. How much meat could have been in there for the box to have been so large and heavy? An entire freaking cow? I covered my nose as I approached the box, a pair of scissors in hand. I probably wouldn't have needed them to open it as it had become soggy enough at the bottom to poke through with a finger, but I wasn't about to poke my finger into spoiled meat juices. That soggy bottom was the only reason I had to open the box in the first place. If I tried to drag it out whole, everything would have spilled out onto the floor. I was going to have to dump out pieces of meat, one garbage bag at a time, and take them down to the dumpster, a process I certainly wasn't looking forward to. My scissors tore right through the tape along the top of the cardboard. I thought the smell couldn't possibly get any worse, but as I flipped the flaps open, I discovered a whole new gamut of stink. It was like opening a burning oven, but instead of a heat wave, I was met with waves of piss, sweat, shit, and putrefaction. It was so bad that I staggered back and had to force down the puke begging to guzzle out of me. I don't think I could have handled that scent mingling with the horrors coming out of that box. I'm not ashamed to admit, I ran out of the door for a breath of fresh air, but even in the short time I'd spent in the garage, the smell had become so ingrained in the fabric of my clothes that it clung to me like a shadow. Nothing I tried could keep the smell out of my nostrils. Not air fresheners, not a face mask, not even 3 showers and a change of clothes. Every second that box lay open in my garage was another second that smell was allowed a foothold into my home. I had to bite the bullet. I returned to the garage, the flaps of the box still open as though inviting me to look inside. I was prepared. A clothespin on my nostrils to keep them shut, a garbage bag in one hand, the strongest clean air I could find in the other, and long rubber gloves to keep my skin from touching whatever was inside. But as it turns out, I needed none of those things. I wouldn't have to touch or clean the contents of that box. I would only have to suffer the coming nightmares every single night. You see, there was meat in that box, but it didn't come from a cow or a pig. No, it was much worse than that. It was my neighbor. Dead. Still in one piece, but dead. I called the cops, and naturally they took me in for interrogation. It's kind of hard not to suspect the man with a corpse in his garage, after all. Thankfully, they soon realized I wasn't involved. My DNA might have been all over that box, and the smell might have left a mark all throughout my entire house, but there was one piece of irrefutable evidence in my neighbor's own hands that proved my innocence. A vlogging camera. They showed me the footage only once. I'm not sure if they were allowed to, or if they just felt so bad for me they figured it couldn't hurt, but either way, I saw it. My neighbor was sitting in the box outside of a shipping facility, laughing as he told the world how he was going to mail himself across state lines. He'd brought pee bottles, food, a pillow, and a few flashlights. His friend, a guy I'd seen at his place several times to help with some of his stunts, closed the lid and presumably dropped him off for shipment. Throughout the next couple of hours, or days, I'm honestly not sure, my neighbor recorded a few short clips about his progress. I think I'm in a truck now. I can feel it moving. Must be in a warehouse. Pretty warm in here. Still got plenty of food. That kind of stuff. And then, on the last entry, the box had toppled over. He broke his neck and that was it. The camera had kept recording until either the memory card filled up or the battery had simply died. There is one thing I didn't tell the police after they showed me that video. Something I heard in the footage that will haunt me until the day I die. Just after the tumble that broke his neck, I heard the familiar screeching sound of my garage door.